Hey guys, Saiyan coming back at you with another video. This time it's a little bit different than the past videos. It's going to be sort of a discussion, more so a commentary, I guess, to sort of talk about what I'm looking for in Infinite, my wish list, my expectations. Because some things I'm sort of hopeful for, some things just they need to be in the game. So let's just get right into it, and yeah, so let's jump into the first topic. The first topic I'm going to go over is sort of the content that I expect. This is more of an expectation for Infinite. Um, Absolutely, we cannot have a Halo 5 sort of remake of on the content aspect. Halo 5 sort of released with no Forge. Theater was still in shambles, still kind of is in shambles, to be perfectly honest with you. There was no fun sort of multiplayer, social playlists, Infection, Griffball, those kind of things. Probably because Forge was also not really a thing, and they were very focused on just Warzone and arena multiplayer. But that sort of aspect of Halo has always been a big thing, especially since Halo 3, to have that not pure competitive content there, just so, because even as a professional player, I don't want to always be playing my Halo game that I'm competing in just purely for getting better and only doing it for that very reason. I still want to enjoy the game, and if those fun aspects are still there, I would love to at least branch out and try out some other game types, some other game modes in multiplayer. Especially not getting my own customs together, because some other players, like competitive players at least, they want to play just competitive, but I know just as a person who enjoys video games entirely, I want to have more content, more things to enjoy purely than just only playing for that grind. I want to have just some fun playlists that are there, that are expansive. They're not generic. I really want to see more, some more branched out 343 backing sort of on these fun things to do in multiplayer, and not just leave it to purely Forge. Even though like the Forge community is great and they make great maps, I would really like to see them hit their stride with being not purely just only arena, and they leave it to that, and then they let everyone else do everything else. I think that's kind of what they did with BTB in this game. I feel like BTB in Halo 5, I should say, is kind of lacking with the purely creative maps that was fully developed from 343. It really was just Forge primarily, and I think that is something that can't really continue unless maybe the assets in Forge are much more expansive even than Halo 5, which is already so great. But we'll have to wait and see. But that is an expectation. There needs to be more content. There needs to be more to do than just grinding the game, at least from me. Halo 5, it still does okay, but I think it still needs to be better. Alright, and the next one that I think is honestly one of the most important things for me, for Halo, just the pure enjoyment that I get, the satisfaction of playing the game, understanding that I'm sort of like this super soldier badass guy, and I have some badass weapons, some badass weaponry, and I want that sort of feeling back that I felt like I had in classic Halos from Halo 1, 2, and 3 especially, because when you're holding that combat evolved pistol, I feel like you can feel the power, you hear the power behind it, and that's just something so small, but really is so impactful that you don't really appreciate until somebody brings it up. And even like sort of the purr of the BR in Halo 2 and 3, I just feel like it sounds, it just has a sort of staple to it that is just so noticeable when you hear it, and so iconic that it just goes under the radar. And I feel like that almost was very much lost in Halo 4 and 5, where they kind of just, it almost feels cookie cutter, and I don't know if it's too hyper realistic is really the way to put it. They really went for like almost a generic sort of look where they want to make it like kind of realistic, but that's not what Halo has ever been. It's really been just that sort of fantastical badass soldier that can do anything and has like the gear and the skill to do it, and it just makes you feel that way. I feel like when you have just like those big ass spanker rockets in your field of view, and it just has that look to it. Especially in Halo 1, when you shot those things, like it looks like you're shooting a straight missile at somebody, and That needs to be, I feel like, brought back. And I think they are sort of reverting and mixing the original art style and look and feel of the classic Halos with the more just upgraded graphics from 4 and 5. So I do expect them. They seem to be already on that grind for trying to bring that back. But that is definitely something that I just want to see. That it just needs to be there. It makes my enjoyment of the game. I feel like I'm a toy soldier. It's like I can imagine a little kid just picking up my Spartan in a Halo 5, just playing with me and making those noises from a pistol. It sounds like a pea shooter, if I'm being perfectly honest. And it just some of the things just don't match up for that sort of feel of Halo. I think that sort of iconic art style and gameplay feel, the sound of it just needs to be there in the future. From here on out, it needs to kind of just bring back that iconic. It can't sound or just look like some other game. It needs to be a Halo. So, getting more so into the multiplayer aspect, which I'm sure maybe some of you are looking more for this. So I'm just going to jump into my preferences on settings. I've always been with Halo from the very beginning, even up till now, and I've enjoyed each Halo for their own reasons. I still can enjoy a Halo game, even Halo 4, Halo 5, Halo Reach, that are not my top Halos. However, I still enjoy them. Not so much 4, but I still can respect what they are. But this is still a wish list. This is what I'm hoping for. And I really wish for Infinite to just have that sort of mixture. I think there are some things that are perfect from old Halos that should have never have left and should have never been sort of maybe updated or just taken away. There's some things such as like the thrust and stabilize that have been brought in for Halo 5 that I think is very much a great upgrade to the combat and can very much add to the dynamic of battles. I still think they could be tuned a little bit, but that's for a little bit later in the video. But some things just I feel like are cop-out tools and just gimmicks that, when brought up even in my streams, I feel like people notice, such as ground pound, Spartan charge, those sort of abilities. They're like it's a cool thought. It's a cool thing to kind of notice at the beginning. That's why I think it's so much a gimmick. It's like, oh wow, your Spartan can do like that Titan slam from Destiny almost, is what I think whenever I think of ground pound. But whenever the practicality of it, and I'm getting one-shotted by people in such weird places in an arena-style game that's supposed to be very balanced, it really comes off as just, I don't know, it feels like a cop-out. That's just my opinion, I feel like, on that. Stuff like sprint, clamber, those are kind of the abilities that I feel like are teetering. They're like kind of middle of the pack, that I can see the utilization of it. Sprint especially, obviously, move faster, but I think there are tools that the devs could use that negates the need for sprint. However, I understand it. A lot of games have sprint nowadays that are very popular. As long as in my opinion, it should be sort of nerfed. I think sprint is still kind of Clamber, I think, doesn't need to be in a Halo game. I think it can be a cop-out. I think it can add to some movement, but primarily, I think if you make the map, if you make the movement and the flow of getting to positions attainable without needing to just hit that ledge, because most jumps in Halo 5, I feel like you'll notice, you can almost make almost all those jumps. And it's just, clamber was there to make sure you needed clamber. Just to be perfectly clear, like, clamber is not a necessary thing. They can lower just every single asset that they use around the maps to make it perfectly available to you without having to ever put your gun down and ever have an animation. And they've done it, and it was a thing in every other Halo before Halo 5, so it's perfectly possible. And I think that's something that really stands out for me for Halo. And it's never having to put your gun down whenever you're moving and moving through the map and taking over positions. It's like I never have to put my gun down. I just always have it up. I'm ready to fight, ready to shoot. I'm never in a disadvantage just for moving around. Because for some people, like, you see those crazy jumps that people can do with spring jumping as well in Halo 5, that you see Clamber working out, but at the end of the day, I feel like those niche times that Clamber is available to you to utilize, it isn't as important as being able to always have your gun ready. Even though Sprint, it kind of has the same argument, but Clamber, especially whenever you're going from a low position to a high position, which is primarily how you want to be moving through Halo, especially in competitive, having that animation just take place so consistently because it is just there, because they designed it that way, I think is just unnecessary, if I'm being perfectly honest. And finally, on to the competitive settings, and what my expectations are for Infinite, and what I want to see. Really what I'm hoping to see, so more of a broad spectrum of what I hope Halo esports becomes, is much more international, and just more active across the globe, because it's so active and so vibrant in NA, and that's usually where like the best players have been, objectively by placings and whatnot. But I think that can also be held accountable by how the marketing is across the globe, across as well with the tournaments as well, and prize money, and just that incentive for people to want to play. Because I feel like the prize pools in NA, from what I've seen compared to around the world, and just tournament, like larger tournaments, and how frequent they are, is not as often and not as large as it is in North America. Now, I know the North American market is usually probably a little bit bigger, but I think Europe is still very underutilized and underappreciated in that realm, and I think it very well could be something that is bolstered with Infinite coming out. I mean, there's a huge market with people playing CS:GO in Europe. Like, I think Europe is usually is usually considered the best players in CS:GO and other games. So why can't some of the best players be competing more consistently from those regions? And I think that's very much so because there's no incentive to, really, unless they already made it to the top. Like, some of the top European players still make top 8 consistently in like Halo 5 and whatnot, but that's it. There's only like maybe 1 or 2 teams that really can maybe hold their own, but there's no other really reason to, because whenever they're competing in their own region, it's not for that much money, and the competition is not that great because not that many people want to play, because the money isn't as great, and there's just not that many tournaments, or as many larger tournaments, I should say. So that's one thing I really want to see, is just the community grow. It needs to not just be North America. It can't just be North America if we want to see Halo get so much bigger, so much more exposure. So that's really what I want to see in that realm. Now for settings, let's kind of get into that. So really, comp settings, I still want to see that 4v4. Maybe, I don't know, I've thought this sometimes, like maybe they're trying to pull like that Call of Duty approach, or like go to Overwatch or something like that. Some other first-person ones I'm tossing out, that where it's more than 4 players. But I feel like Halo in that realm, it's an arena game, that it's smaller maps, smaller teams, and that's, I believe, what it should stay. I think the primary start should be BR. I think that BR is still like the iconic weapon that should basically be the comp weapon that represents like the gun that we use. And on top of that, it needs to be back to its former glory. Not the H5 BR. I'm sorry, the design's not that good compared to the previous BR, and it doesn't sound as good. That's what I talked about earlier with just the feel of the game. It just doesn't feel as good. Let's see. So I'm hoping that abilities have cooldowns, maybe even a little bit more nerfed for comp at least. I think sprint can't be the way it is in Halo 5. Even though you get shot a couple times and you can't sprint as much, if you're already sprinting, you have to have like your shields broken and then shot even more so to then stop sprinting. It needs to not be that way. It can't be that way. It needs to be not a cop-out tool. Maybe you can use it to get to your teammate quickly, but just in those fights in Halo 5 when people just can keep on sprinting and there's no cooldown, it's frustrating, to say the least. I really think that comp needs to very much move back to. That's why I really praise Classic Halo, because it's like there is no gimmicks. You are shooting your gun, you're getting power weapons, getting to positions. That's why I enjoyed comp Halo for what it was before. Halo 5 still had that. It still had those important things. However, there was just so many tools that I feel like cheapened the gameplay. Whenever somebody should be dead, should be getting into now one player should be getting into a better position, getting a weapon because he just kills this person. Well, he just thrusts a little way to clamber to, or spring jump clamber up to some place that he really should not have been able to, but he has the tools to. And it's still one thing to recognize the skill of that person being able to live, but I feel like in my eyes, and I know some other players, some other top players can agree with this, it just doesn't feel like they deserve like that escape. Such things as thrust. Thrust is, I would say, very balanced for the most part. I would say it's balanced, not very balanced. Actually, I take that back. What I think should be sort of nerfed is like that jump thrust mechanic. I feel like every single fight in Halo 5, every single one, even in matchmaking when you're in Onyx and above, it results in that jump thrust every single time. Thrusting on the ground, I would say that's perfectly balanced. Thrusting, well, like jump thrusting, just for the distance that you get, how great of an angle change it is, I just think it's a little too good. But besides that, thrust, perfectly balanced, I would say. Stabilize, I would say it's fine. I think stabilize with clamber is kind of stupid, but it is what it is. I would say stabilize itself as a utility, very good. Power weapons, I would say as well, is something that I think should be reworked back to what more so is classic. I believe weapon pads kind of cheapen the skill it took in classic Halo to time out the weapons. I think the Halo 3 system where you pick up the weapon and like that, from when you pick it up is when it's like that's the time it stops or starts, the timer. That's definitely a very good skill on its own, and I can appreciate the skill it takes to time those things. I still think it could be on like a universal timer, but I just think that maybe it shouldn't be quite what Halo 3 is, but it shouldn't have weapon pads where it is directly throwing in your face, hey, there is a super powerful thing that could turn the tide of the game coming up in 10 seconds, and if you're looking at it, it's going to tell you right then and there. I feel like it just takes away. You can turn that switch off in your brain. You don't have to think. You just have to look around, and there you go. You have a sniper in your hands or a rocket, whatever. Power-ups, I think, are perfectly fine in Halo 5. Pickups, I don't know. Maybe I can appreciate just like walking into power-ups, like in Halo 3. Halo Reach also, I believe, but Halo 5 with the pickups, like you pressing a button to pick up and there's a wait time. I'm not sure. I'm not really sure how I feel about that. I'm kind of indifferent, I would say. So I don't really have a strong opinion on that. On to the next thing in settings. Absolutely, we need more game types. I can't stand playing the exact same game types, like series after series. It just needs more variety, whether it's extraction, assault. Oddball kind of sucked in Halo 5. We all know that. Let's be honest with ourselves. It was not as good as it should have been. Maybe even King of the Hill brought back, but King of the Hill and Strongholds, they're kind of similar, so maybe not so much that. What I really think is a possible, just to toss out an idea for what I can see, is round-based game types. Now, whether that is someone attacking and defending, such as CSGO, or like Search and Destroy, if you want to think about it that way, where you have a select amount of lives or just one life, and you swap off between each round. I think that is a good idea. It could be worth a shot. Maybe even round-based slayers, because I know at least in competitive, there's been, especially in Halo 5, there was so much of an advantage spawning on red side. Just about every map that was asymmetric. Symmetrical and asymmetrical maps is another topic, but red spawns usually would get the the person that's a higher seed would get the better spawns, which for a balanced arena shooter, I don't think that is a true thing that should ever be really, what's the word? That should ever be something that's a part of the meta, is being the higher seed. I don't think you should be rewarded for that. Like, you get a higher seed, and your reward is getting easier people, or easier lower tier teams to play against early on. But just that aspect of, I'm red team, I can now get this weapon easier, or power up easier than this other person. It just kind of takes away from, I don't know, it's just like, I'm blue team, okay, they're probably going to get this because they spawn there. Just for the simple act of them being on that team, that's why they're almost guaranteed. Especially at the highest level, like, those players can get the power-ups because they spawn where they do. And lastly, this applies not just to comp, but just entirely the game itself. I imagine with the new engine, this should be easy, so consistent dev support. And especially for comp, at least, where we feel like something might be broken, there's game-breaking glitches, people are one-shot meleeing people with the ball, thrusting into walls with stickies on their head and living. Those are the kind of things that need to be out of the game instantly because it's game-breaking. It is very much game-breaking, and there shouldn't just be simple rules about it because they can't fix it. That needs to not be a thing, and they need to be willing to support the community and listen, at least, and test things out. Even if it doesn't work out and people want to revert it, like, there needs to at least be testing done and willingness to change the game after it's been released consistently, and not just every 6 months, not every even 3 months. I would almost prefer maybe every once a month they have like a big update, or 2 weeks, however it works. If it's smaller hotfixes or giant patches, it depends. But just across the board, there needs to be consistent dev support. Halo 5 really struggled with this, and I really think that took away from the game very much, especially for the competitive one. Like, such a thing as like the nerfs of the rifles came into place, where everyone agreed, like, okay, the BR and DMR, if you have those in your hands, like, you're gonna win the fight. You're gonna win the fight against like a pistol every single time. Which, it's a sort of power weapon, so maybe you really should be, but maybe it was a little bit too much. Okay, well, we're gonna nerf those. A lot of people hated the nerfs. They barely touched the DMR. They didn't touch the BR really much at all. They changed some recoil pattern or something, I believe, but nothing to get it anywhere close to what it was before, and now it's useless. And they never change anything ever again. So there needs to be, it can't just be one and done, like, oh, we listened to you guys one time and now we're done. I would say 343 seems to be on the right track of listening to the community. I will give them props for that. I don't want to diss them. I don't want to give them any sort of malintentions from what I'm saying. But you got to kind of call it as it is and how it has been. But I will say that they're doing much better now, it seems, to listening what people want. So hopefully they sort of even check out this video and listen to some of my gripes, expectations, wishful thinking. So we'll just have to wait and see. Alright guys, that is the video. I hope you all enjoyed. Be sure to leave in the comments what you all believe, if you think I'm right, think I'm wrong, if you agree, disagree, what you think should be in place. I'm really interested to see sort of the community's thoughts on this subject, and I would really love to have a nice discussion. Yeah, don't get too toxic, alright? Everyone has some different opinions, and I can respect that at least, so be sure to respect each other's opinions at least and understand where people are coming from. So let's have a good discussion about what we want the future to be, because that's how we get stuff done, alright? Let me just put that out there. That's how we get stuff done, is calm, cool, collected debates. You can debate people, just don't go after the people's necks, alright? Let's just keep it like that. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell if you want to keep up with these videos. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Later, guys.